Hello everyone and welcome to the Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets and discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let's dive in. We begin our review of the global economy with key releases in the US, Europe, China, India, and Japan. Stocks advanced for the sixth week in a row in New York amid imminent rate cut expectations, enthusiasm surrounding artificial intelligence-linked stocks, and strong earnings by banks. Investors bid up stocks after consumer price inflation eased and rate cut expectations rose following Fed chair comments. Consumer price inflation eased for the third month in a row to 3% in June from 3.3% in May, the lowest since June 2023. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, eased to an annual pace of 3.3% from 3.4% in May and extended its decline after peaking at 6.6% in September 2022. Across the Atlantic, Germany's exports declined for the first time in 3 months in May. Exports declined 3.6% from the previous month, 131.6 billion euros, and imports fell 6.6% to 106.7 billion euros, resulting in a trade surplus increase to 24.9 billion from 19 billion a year ago. In Asia, China's consumer price inflation rose for the fifth month in a row, but the pace of increase slowed, indicating deflationary pressures are still building. China's exports in June rose 8.6% to a 21-month high of 307.9 billion, indicating the fastest growth in shipments since October 2023. Among China's largest trading partners, exports rose 6.6% to the US, 0.9% to Japan, 27.6% to Taiwan, 15% to the Asian region, and 4.1% to the European Union. Moreover, Chinese companies are diverting more of their exports to the U.S. through Vietnam, Malaysia, and Mexico. Japan's real wages, after adjusting for inflation, declined in May, highlighting the challenge faced by the Bank of Japan in kickstarting wage inflation spiral. Let us review key events in global bond, currency, and commodity markets last week. The yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury fell below 4.2% after the latest batch of economic data raised market expectations that the Federal Reserve is likely to start cutting rates as early as September. Crude oil price in Texas traded flat at $84 a barrel and halted gains in the previous 4 weeks in a row amid heightened expectations of an interest rate cut and rising demand in the summer months. Natural gas prices in Europe stabilized around 32 euros per megawatt hour amid low European demand and strong storage levels. The euro traded around a 2-month high of $1.08, and traders assessed political risk in France and monetary outlook from the European Central Bank. The yen dropped 2% and traded below 158 against the yen, against the US dollar amid suspected market intervention by the Bank of Japan and the Ministry of Finance. We now shift our attention to major stock markets in the US, Europe, and Asia. The US, S&P 500 index and the Nasdaq Composite advanced for the sixth week in a row and reached new record highs amid earnings optimism for mega-cap tech companies, imminent rate cut expectations, and broader economic stability. European markets closed down amid growing political turmoil in France and rising bond yields in the region. The Nikkei 225 stock average in Japan extended gains for the fifth week in a row, tracking gains in tech stocks in New York. Hong Kong indices rebounded for the second week in a row, supported by the expectations of a rate following the easing of U.S. inflation. Indian market indices extended gains for the sixth week in a row amid economic growth optimism and earnings optimism after Tata Consultancy reported better than expected quarterly results at the start of the earnings season. Let us shift our attention to merger deals, market movers, and earnings updates from leading companies last week. Citigroup reported higher than expected revenue and earnings in the second quarter. JP Morgan Chase reported stronger than expected revenue in the second quarter and set aside higher than expected $3.1 billion of provision for loan losses. Wells Fargo declined after net interest income fell 9% to $11.9 billion from $13.2 billion a year ago, and the bank reiterated its forecast of net income to decline in 2024 between 7 and 9%. Costco Wholesale, the warehouse membership club operator, raised annual subscription fee in the U.S. and Canada by $5 and premium membership by $10. MicroStrategy jumped 7%, and the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin announced a 10-for-1 stock split on Thursday. Delta Airlines declined 6%, and the international air carrier reported weaker than expected quarterly results. PepsiCo, the snack and beverage company, reported mixed quarterly results. Taiwan Semiconductor, the advanced semiconductor chip maker, reported better than expected revenue in June. LegalZoom.com plunged 28% after the company said its chief executive has resigned from the office and the company lowered its annual revenue out. BP, British Petroleum, declined 4% after the British oil company announced an impairment charge of up to $2 billion and weaker refining margin in the second quarter. Indivior plunged 35% after the UK-based drug maker lowered its annual earnings outlook and said it was discontinuing production of a schizophrenia drug, Perseris. Hugo Boss edged higher, and Frasers Group increased its stake in the fashion company. Investors are looking forward to the release of several U.S. economic reports in addition to flood of earnings. On the economic front, retail sales, industrial production, housing starts, completions, and building permits are scheduled next week in the U.S. In addition, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, United Health, American Express, Blackstone, Novartis, and J&J are scheduled to release earnings. Across the Atlantic, the European Central Bank is expected to leave its reference rate unchanged and announce its monetary policy decisions. Industrial production, trade balance, and inflation in the Eurozone, and inflation, retail sales, and jobs in the UK are set to be released next week. China is expected to release retail sales, the unemployment rate, home prices, and second quarter GDP growth rate. Moreover, a 4-day meeting of the much-delayed third plenum of the Communist Party policymakers is scheduled to start on Monday, and investors have lowered their expectations of major policy announcements. Japan is scheduled to release June's inflation and trade balance update. In India, investors are also looking forward to the release of trade balance data for June. You can review daily U.S. and global financial market news, stock movers, earnings release, SEC filings, and economic updates on ticker.com and 123jump.com. You can find the latest financial books on Rodera.com, keep up with financial industry events on eventsinamerica.com, review ETF and mutual fund performance and in-depth profiles on tickerfunds.com, and review market updates and stock movers in India on niveshak.in. That's all for today, and we will see you